the past 2 years have just been so much wave after wave of new, unexpected, and unrelenting problems and adversities coming upon us. And what I've discovered in my life is that it's just been almost impossible for me to keep track emotionally, the register of information with the big picture. We have to stop and look back. And so that's what I want to do. I want to think about 40 things that we thought were unimaginable only 2 short years ago. I'm going to give you one of them. I'm a pretty politically astute person. I watch the news. I keep up with things I care about. I'm wearing a Declaration of Independence shirt. I think a lot about it. And it took a friend of mine just the other day to point out to me this new reality that 2 days ago was the French election, the French presidential election, and it was a very close election, but the incumbent was reelected, and within 2 hours they knew the vote. And it's why? Because you just count the votes, and you have election day, and you count them, and boom, you have a result. But what was different in 2020 is that the winner of the presidential election, that only 4 out of 10 votes for the winner were cast on election day. That means 6 of them were early ballots, some kind of absentee, early voting, mail-in voting thing. And what was the precipitating event? Well, coronavirus was the one that was labeled the big reason why we would have this early voting system, and only 40% of the winner's votes were cast on election day. And why is that so different? Well, I've never voted early. Have you voted early? Do you know anyone who's voted early or voted absentee? My brother-in-law is the only person I could think of that I know has voted early or absentee, and he lived in Okinawa. He was a Marine, stationed there, so obviously can't come to the United States to vote on election day, so he voted early. I'm sure there's a handful of you who have done that for whatever reason. You knew you were going to be out of town or something else. Maybe you're living abroad and you vote early. But man, 6 out of 10 voted early. And why does that matter? Well, we don't have a rhythm. I mean, election day is a big deal, right? You have hundreds of people in my city who work at the precincts, and it's a lot of processes, and man, there's a lot of rhythms and technical things and cultural things and counting things and security things, and here we up in that process totally. Tremendous 5-fold increase in mail-in ballots, early ballots, versus just a handful of years before. Incredible. And it's much more challenging to make sure that voting procedure is secure, trustworthy, absolutely reliable. And you must have absolute reliability or things just crumble to pieces. And we had a second problem, kind of like 1.2, right? The little undercurrent behind why we would have 60% absentee or early voting for the winner of the presidential election is that we had the coronavirus, and we had state legislatures, not state legislatures, secretaries of state and administrative departments who just changed the rules. They just got their pen out. I carry a pen in my pocket all the time. They just got their pen out and just penciled in there. This is, again, these are words penned by the founders of the United States, penned and signed by people who were of record, right? These are not of record. These are administrative personnel who just did it. They signed it away. Now, what's bad about that is that the manner of a presidential election is specifically identified in writing in the Constitution of the United States. I have a Constitution right here. There's one in my back pocket. I always keep one in my back pocket now. And it tells you how presidential elections are to be run. And the manner of election is determined by the state legislature. This is written down in the Constitution, not hard to interpret. And what we had are many states, I know Georgia was one of them, and others, the swing states, where the manner of election was determined by a court consent decree, or the Secretary of State just decided. They just decided. And again, the Constitution says that the state legislature determines the manner of voting for presidential and congressional elections. And we just upended that. And because of coronavirus, we had 6 out of 10 votes for the person who won the presidential election were voting not on election day. And we had things called Zucker boxes. You've heard of Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, or Meta. he donated hundreds of millions of dollars to various county clerks and commissioners of voting to really get a get out the vote effort for certain precincts that he handpicked. Now, that is unbelievable, right? We have a partisan action to pick, to promote voting in certain geographical areas and not others by a private group, private citizen. And he didn't donate to a political campaign. That's fine. I'm all for that, man. I want you to donate for political campaigns if you care about it, because I'm going to do the same. I'm going to donate to things that I care about. No, we don't have that. We have a billionaire who donates money to county clerks to promote voting in certain precincts, Zucker boxes, right? Where you can go drop your ballot off in Wisconsin, in Philadelphia, in Detroit, in Atlanta at a Zucker box, an unaccountable system where someone mails a ballot to X and then who knows how that ballot comes back in. I saw a video just a few days ago of a woman who walked up to one of these Zucker boxes. I don't know if this was a Zucker box or another kind of mail, and she dropped in multiple ballots in that box. You know what that's called? That's called a felony, man. That's illegal. That's disenfranchising the rest of us who voted in person and are identified on the rolls. I signed the book. It says my name. I signed my book. My name, my signature, every election. And here we have this lady who collected, I think it was 4 ballots I saw her put in there. 4 ballots, 4 votes, 4 of your votes. You went and took your time and go vote. And this lady just, who knows whose ballots these were? Is that okay? That's a felony, man. You cannot harvest ballots for other people. That's disenfranchising the rest of us. One man, one vote. One woman, one vote. Not 4 people from just wherever she got them from. Who knows? Did you know that it took place 2 years ago? Unthinkable. And here we have it. We have mail-in voting, early voting, determining the winner of the presidential campaign. And we don't have state legislatures ratifying these changes that allowed for this huge influx of mail-in voting. We just have a court decree or an administrative decision by the Secretary of State. And we have county commissioners getting gigantic donations from billionaires to allow all this to take place. That is un-American, unacceptable. And that's the first of the 40 things that were unthinkable just 2 years ago. Right here in the Declaration, it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that governments are instituted among men to preserve these rights. And the freedoms that are protected by, enumerated in our Constitution and are declared to be true in this Declaration of Independence, the people willingly give authority to their leaders, to the government, to preserve these rights. And if the governments do not protect those rights, that's why the governments are there, to protect our God-given rights. The government didn't give us those rights. The Constitution doesn't give us those rights. The government is here to preserve our God-given rights. And if governments fail to do that by the means I just described, where the bureaucratic state just decides, and they just bypass the people's elected representatives in the state legislatures and just change the way we do voting, just change it, then we have a gigantic problem. It's unthinkable 2 years ago. Freedom is better, and freedom must be preserved. These men right here, they declared that we will be a state, a country of states that protect and preserve our God-given freedoms. Freedom is better. 40 things that were unthinkable 2 years ago. And that's the first one.